So I have been doing this for a while, but really only for about 10 years. 10 years ago, I was just a really sweet pastor's wife, raising 4 kids. I was not wanting to be in on the culture war. But the reason I'm here is because the left broke me, unfortunately, right? They started saying the most outrageous things. And I started noticing it first on the issue of marriage. Right? To me, that was the first time where instead of going, well, we disagree with you, or we think that you're wrong, they said, you're evil. If you don't agree with us about gay marriage, it's not that you're wrong. It's not that we disagree. It's that you're a bigot. It's that you hate gay people, right? It wasn't necessarily about the arguments anymore, right? It was a demonization of the people that weren't going to toe the progressive line. Now, that was a problem for me. First of all, this idea that if you don't support gay marriage, that means you hate gay people. That's garbage. And I would not put it past anybody in this audience to know that's a lie, because you all know and love gay people. The truth is, some of you guys might identify as gay or experience same-sex attraction. You're one of us, right? Because you understand that personal feelings, right, don't determine God's truth for right and wrong, right? And so I knew that was a lie because my mom has been in a relationship with another woman since I was 10. And I love her, and I love her partner. And I believe that 2 men could never replace her in my life. But that is what the other side was saying about marriage. They said kids don't care if they have 2 moms or 2 dads. But what that means is kids don't care if they have lost their mom or dad. That's what it means to be raised in a same-sex headed household, is that somebody's parent is missing. A parent that kid has a natural right to. A parent that kid probably lays at night and dreams about and wonders where they are and who they are and do they love them. And I had been working with youth. My husband and I had been doing youth ministry for years. And I had never met a kid whose mother or father was gone, that they weren't at minimum curious about. But a lot of the times, that was the situation that left a lifelong gaping wound for them. Those are the kids who in the middle of the church lock-in, at 2 a.m. on the gym floor, were in a puddle, wondering, where's my mom? Why did she leave? Who's my father? Did he not love me? So this idea that you could swap out moms and dads like it's no big deal, and the kids will be fine. Right? That was my bright red line. I'm like, get behind me, Satan. No, don't make kids pay for your political agenda. So that's when I started to get down on this, right? That's when I first started blogging anonymously, because I'm a chicken. I know what these people will do to you, right? So I thought, I'm just going to hide my identity. I'm just going to keyboard warrior it up. Nobody needs to know who I am. And when I started researching this, I was stunned, because I knew that kids wanted their mom and dad, but I did not know they had a right to their mom and dad. I knew that they suffered if their mom or dad was gone, but I did not know the demographic reality of how detrimental it is to their heart and soul and mind when they are intentionally separated from their mom or dad. So I had a lot of learning to do, and that learning curve mainly happened on the topic of marriage. That's when I realized, marriage, this really isn't about adult feelings. Sure, a lot of us fall in love and all of that, and that's nice. But the government doesn't hand out marriage licenses depending on, who meets your deepest fulfillment and longings, right? The government, as our friend Brian Anderson says, doesn't care about your love life. Government has an interest in marriage because it has an interest in children. And the more I started reading and learning about kids and what they need, I learned that they do have a natural right to their mother and father. Now, this is something that's fairly new, I think, in terms of our vocabulary, in the way that Christians talk about this issue, right? You hear the term children's rights, and you're like, I've heard about that business, right? Because the other side has adulterated and misused the term children's rights. Okay, they use it wrongly. It needs to be redeemed. You guys actually are very comfortable and familiar with children's rights. You already stand firmly on children's right to life. And it is on that fundamental natural right that you all, including you guys who are running the pregnancy resource centers, right? It is on that foundational truth, that natural law reality, that we have rolled back so much of the abortion machine because we have said, regardless of how the adults are feeling and how they suffer, children have a right to life. And no amount of adult feeling, longing, loss should violate that fundamental rights of children. What I'm going to do, and what we're going to talk about tonight, is we are going to take that same child-centric mentality into the world of marriage and family. Because children have rights on this side of the womb as well. And other than their right to life, children's primary right is to be known and loved by the two people responsible for their existence. And what's incredible is when we honor that right, we see these incredible outcomes. So first, let's just talk about some of the biggest issues that we're facing as a country today. Things like homelessness, high incarceration rates, teen suicides, child poverty, teen pregnancies, high school dropout. Those kind of seem like disconnected issues. But they have something in common. All of those major social ills that we are facing today are overpopulated with fatherless children. 90% of homeless youth didn't have a dad in their home. 70 to 85% of men in prison grew up without a dad. 60% of teen suicides, 71% of pregnant teens, 71% of high school dropouts didn't have a dad in their home, didn't have their dad in their home. Kids are 4 times more likely to live in poverty if their father is not in their home. So this fundamental child right on this side of the womb to be known and loved by both their mother and father, if it was respected and protected, we would decimate nearly every social issue that we're facing on today. Why is it that we need to focus on the family? Because of this, because of kids. So this right, protecting this fundamental right to a child's mother and father, has this culture transforming impact, right? What would happen if every child was raised by their mother and father? And we're going to talk about adoption. All you guys are like, my adoption radar is going up. We'll get to you, I promise, okay? Why is it that these rights are so powerful? Why is it that protecting these rights has such a dramatic chance of transforming our society? 4 reasons. Number 1, and none of this should surprise any of you guys. Any of you guys who hold to a biblical worldview should not be surprised that God's design for sex and marriage would have such drastic child beneficial outcomes to it. But here's 4 reasons why protecting a child's right to their mother and father would radically transform our nation. Number 1, safety. A child's own mother and father are, statistically, the safest, most connected to, most protective of, and most invested in a child's life. We should not be surprised by this. Evolutionary biologists will look at it from their lens and say, well, obviously, there's evolutionary benefits to investing in your own offspring, right? We look at this and say, well, of course, if God has gifted me with this child, I have an obligation to preserve, protect, provide for this child. And so that is what we see. We have been studying family structure for decades, and there is no statistical case to be made to the contrary, that if we genuinely want kids to be safe and loved, because a lot of people say to me, kids don't need biological connection, they just need to be safe and loved. And I say, well, congratulations. You're on the them before us train. Because the place where kids are statistically most likely to be safe and loved is in the home of their mother and father. Now, adoption agencies know this. I worked at the largest Chinese adoption agency in the world for 4 years. It would be insane if we just handed babies over to unrelated adults. Why? Because social workers are not fools. They understand that placing a child in a home of an unrelated adult is statistically risky. That's why adoptive parents, like me, have had to go through months of screening and vetting and background checks, references, home studies. I mean, all of it. Because when you are placing the child with an adult who's not biologically related, statistically, there are risks. and all of you guys can fact check me real time if you want. Get your phones out. Google the words mother's boyfriend. And I want you to tell me, like, for real. The millennials in there, you guys do it. Okay? You'll do it. Okay? Get your phones out and Google mother's boyfriend. Because it takes more than being in a romantic relationship with a child's parent for an adult to treat that child like a son or daughter. Now, I know heroic step-parents, and so do you. I know step-parents that are filling the void for a negligent biological parent, and they all deserve our recognition and admiration and support. But when you are talking about policies and realities, we must recognize that there is something distinct about the protection of kids when it comes to a child's own mother and father. Okay, what millennial took me up on that? Who Googled it? Okay, non-millennial. Go. Okay, non-millennial, bearded non-millennial first. So what did you find? Give me a few of the top hits after you Googled mother's boyfriend.
Mother and boyfriend arrested for murder of 2-year-old. 9-year-old calls 911 after being left in care of mother's boyfriend. Mother's boyfriend charged with murder after 8-year-old boy's remains found.
Good.
1-year-old is killed. And mother's boyfriend is arrested.
Good. What did you find?
Mother's boyfriend charged with her 6-year-old boy beaten to death. Mother's boyfriend shoved urine-soaked sock in 5-year-old's mouth. Why are mother's boyfriends so likely to kill?
Okay. So we all, I think, have a fairly good sampling because we generally come from a biblical worldview that honors children and understands their needs, and probably most of the people in this room and who are listening on the live broadcast have this perspective that children are precious. For those people that don't, biology serves as a pretty incredible and critical protective aspect in the adult-child relationship. And right now we are in a place where we are minimizing the importance of biology, and children are being placed in some of the most risky, harmful situations that they can be. So that's one of the first reasons why this children's right to their own mother and father is so important. It's for safety. The second reason is identity. So I worked at a Chinese adoption agency. I'm an adoptive mom, and now part of what I do at Them Before Us is I catalog the stories of children conceived through sperm donation, egg donation, and surrogacy. And it's very interesting because even if these children are raised by loving heterosexual moms and dads, there is still something that they long for, and that is their biological identity. There is something that only those two adults, only a child's mother and father, can give to them that they crave. It doesn't mean that the adoptive parents are bad. It means that the child has lost something that they had a natural right to. You know, I love my adoptive son. He will rule the world someday. He is so brilliant, but I can't fully compensate for everything that he has lost. There are some things that I cannot give to him, questions I can't answer. Sometimes it's hard to look different than everybody else in the home. Sometimes it's hard to have a different origin story than his brothers and sisters. And I can and should acknowledge that. In fact, these days, adoption agencies build that in to their training and preparation, is helping you know that your child is going to grapple with adoption and their story in different ways at different ages. And are you in or are you out? You know, you need to get into this adoption thing knowing that your kid's going to have questions. The third incredible reason why this natural right is so important is because if you honor it, you get the perfect gender balance in the home every single time. Every single time. You know, it amazes me that the left has relentlessly sought to have male and female voices on the Supreme Court. They've passed laws in California saying that all publicly held boards need to include female board members because they think that it's important to have a balance within those institutions. And yet, they have spent decades relentlessly destroying the one institution that gets the gender balance exactly right every time, and that's marriage. That's marriage, okay? The one institution that naturally does it, that's the one that they've targeted. And kids benefit from having not just two loving adults, but having a father and a mother. Gender is not a social construct, right? It does not matter what your gender theorist professor tells you. Gender is this beautiful, distinct expression that stems from our biological differences, and kids love it, and they need it. And I won't go into too much, because if you guys are plugged into Focus on the Family, you're like, yeah, got it. We've been listening to the radio broadcast, we know this. So let me move on to the fourth reason why this natural right is so powerful. Because if you can respect it, kids don't undergo the trauma of losing a mother or a father. And if you disregard it, kids are going to suffer. They're going to suffer that loss. Now, throughout history, kids have lost their mother or father, typically due to tragedy, right? We have had generations of kids that lost fathers to war. Before we had modern medicine, children, they used to lose their mothers in childbirth. That is not the reason why kids are losing their mother or father today. It is not because of tragedy. It is due to intentionality. Children are losing their mother or father because adult desires are being prioritized above their rights. When kids lose their mother or father to tragedy, we mourn. When kids lose their mother or father intentionally, that's an injustice. And that's when you get the pastors' wives riled up, right? That's when they start nonprofit organizations because they're just totally pissed, right? Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the different ways that this fundamental child right is being threatened today. The first one is marriage. Marriage is not about you. It's not about adult feeling. From a public policy perspective, it is not about adult desires. Marriage has been the most child-friendly institution the world has ever known because it unites the two people to whom children have a natural right for life. It is the only adult relationship where kids don't have to lose anything to be in the relationship. And that is why we can permit adults to make whatever consensual decisions they want to make, but we should only promote the one adult relationship that protects children's natural rights. There's a problem when our laws normalize marriage that is missing a man or woman. And that is that our parenthood laws will follow suit. And that is what we've seen. Everywhere that gay marriage goes, every country that legalizes gay marriage, parenthood laws are redefined. When you make husbands and wives optional, mothers and fathers become optional right away. And a lot of people, I was there for that whole battle in lots of different countries, they'd say, well, this is really good for kids who have same-sex parents because they're not going to feel sad or upset by the normalization of kids who have moms or dads. That is a lie. That's a lie. What it really does is it gaslights those kids, okay? Because nobody has to tell those kids with two moms or two dads that they should have a mom or dad. Just like every other human child, it's what they want. Nobody has to tell them you should have a mom or dad. In fact, it's really difficult for kids when they have two moms or two dads and their longing for a father is never recognized or validated. So for example, my friend Heather Barwick and I submitted an amicus brief to the Supreme Court in the case that went before them in Obergefell versus Hodges, and we just filled it with stories of kids with two moms or two dads. And her story was one where she had two mommies. And she was very loved and well cared for her two moms. And she was raised in a very tolerant community. In fact, it was almost all lesbian women, right? Women who said they didn't need or want a man in their life. The problem is, Heather desperately wanted a dad. But then she started to hate herself. Because why should she want a dad in a community that said that fathers are optional and men are disposable? So she waffled between hating her father for not being there and hating herself for wanting him. But here's the deal. It doesn't matter what our laws say. You can never legislate away a child's longing for their mother or father. The question is, will your laws recognize their innate longing or ignore it? So the next issue about how children's rights are being threatened is divorce. And I know that this one stings, right? Because we might have been a victim of it as a child or as an adult. And our laws have gotten this so wrong for so long. And now we've got generations of kids who don't even know what a real marriage looks like because they never saw one, right? And so that's really where the marriage redefinition began. It wasn't gay marriage. It was divorce, right? That was the first place where we said, this is really about adult happiness. Because what no-fault divorce was is saying, well, if you're no longer happy, then it no longer has to be a marriage. Well, same-sex marriage advocates picked up on that and said, oh, if marriage is just about making you happy, well, being married to another man makes me happy. So that really laid the foundation. Now that's a problem. That's a problem for kids. And let me say, there are reasons for divorce, right? We used to have a system that recognized that when one parent was at fault, abuse, adultery, addiction, abandonment, the courts and all of society would side with the faithful spouse and reward them with custody, with the house, with social support. Now, our laws, in essence, give maximum power to the spouse who is misbehaving the most and who wants the marriage the least. And oftentimes the spouse who's doing their best for the kid and for the marriage gets the raw end of the deal. Those divorces are a problem for kids. We spend an entire chapter on it in our book, but the reality is it impacts kids' mental, emotional, and physical health. And probably the thing that struck me the most when I was writing the book, because divorce was actually the topic I had looked into the least. I'm like, I got all the info on same-sex marriage and donor conception, but it was when I was researching the divorce chapter that I came upon this study that said that kids that live in two different homes, 50% of them develop two different personalities. And it makes sense. I've seen those kids, right? As a kid myself. Mom and dad have two different religions. They have two different rules about how much ice cream to eat. They have two different limits on screen time. They keep two different kinds of secrets. A lot of the time, the most important people at this house barely even know that the most important people at this house exist. And we've done kids a disservice by not focusing, not giving divorce the focus that it deserves, because it is a major threat to the rights and well-being of kids. Same-sex parenting, the promotion of same-sex parenting, the normalization of same-sex parenting, is a major threat to children's rights. What is it that those kids lose? Well, they're always losing a biological parent. They're always starving for the love of a mother or the love of a father. And they've always suffered some kind of traumatic loss. Any way that a child arrives in a same-sex headed household, it's not pleasant. It means one of their parents have died, there's been a divorce, they were commercially separated from a parent at conception, or they were abandoned and subsequently adopted. And so in our book, we profile some of these kids' stories because they are very expensive to tell. Very expensive for these kids to talk about how much they wanted a dad, even though they were well loved by their two moms. One of the stories that we profile is my friend Samantha, who was raised almost exclusively by her father and his boyfriend for the first 7 to 10 years of her life. And she said, I didn't even know that there was such a thing as mother until I watched The Land Before Time as a kindergartner. And then I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, there's something called mother, and it's a parent that's a woman. And she said, after that, I just went to every woman who showed me any amount of affection. And I said, will you be my mother? Will you be my mother? How about you? Will you be my mother? Nobody had to tell her that she deserved a mother. She desperately wanted it. Sperm and egg donation, reproductive technologies, right? This is such a violation of children's rights, and we had better get this straight really fast. This is the buying and selling of children. You can get on, you two non-millennials, and Google, right? Google sperm donor catalog, egg donor catalog. You can shop for your child's mother or father. You can filter out donors by race, age, degree. White donors are going to cost you a little more. Brown donors, you can get at bargain basement prices. This is a eugenics enterprise. It is a marketplace of humans. And these children are not well. They struggle with trust in their parent-child relationship. They have disproportionately struggled with identity issues. They are disturbed that money changed hands over their conception. They feel like they were bought and sold. Why? Because they were bought and sold. Surrogacy. Unfortunately, there's a lot of confusion about surrogacy, even among conservatives and Christians. The answer is no. Never. Ever. Why? First of all, surrogacy always involves IVF. Only about 7% of children created in a laboratory will be born alive. You got that, pro-lifers? 7%. If you're making a baby in a petri dish, 93% of them will not be born alive. They will either spend their entire life in a freezer, they will be deemed non-viable and discarded, they will be donated to research, they will be deemed the wrong sex and discarded, they won't survive the thaw, they won't implant, and if they are one of the lucky few that are implanted, they will be subject to selective reduction, which is abortion, which is built into almost every surrogacy contract. Why? Because if you're spending 6 figures on a baby, abortion functions as both quality control and quantity control. Surrogacy is not about babies. Surrogacy is about on-demand designer babies shipped worldwide to anybody that has the money to buy them. Adoption. Adoption is an institution centered around the well-being of children. This is what a just society does. This is how a just society responds to children who have lost their parents. Okay? We have decades of best practice in the world of adoption centered around the best interest of the child. It is why unrelated adults who would like to have a child placed in their home, like me, and probably like a lot of you, they don't get to just say, I'm going to purchase this kid, I intend to parent, I'm going to presume to parent, and you get a baby handed over to you, right? Agencies would lose their license. This is in contrast to reproductive technologies. Nowhere do they talk about the best interest of the child. It is a marketplace centered around the desires of adults. There are no background checks that need to clear with reproductive technologies. The only check that has to clear is the check at the bank. If you have the money, you get the baby. It doesn't matter if you're a single man, 3 men, have a criminal record, have been credibly accused of child abuse. It doesn't matter. Nobody's looking into these adults. Right? They just want to know if you've got the money. So, what are we doing at Them Before Us? We're pissing everybody off. Okay, that's kind of the bottom line. Is we insist that all adults, single, married, gay, and straight, conform to the rights of children. And that is going to make demands on every single one of us. At some point, all of us are going to have to figure out, are we going to prioritize children's rights, or are we going to elevate our own desires? What is it that we want, right? What is it that we're willing to do? Because this is hard. This is a hard message. It's a hard message for my friends who desperately want a baby and struggle with infertility, right? Who have this incredible God-given longing and feel like their heart is being crushed every month. The challenge for them is to put them before us. They have to solve that problem in a way that does not separate a child from their biological mother and father. Their desire for a biological child cannot be stronger than that child's eventual longing for their missing biological parent. This is a hard message for my friends who experience same-sex attraction, who would be incredible parents, right? Just because you have same-sex attraction, that doesn't mean you'd be a bad parent. My mother, best mother ever. Best mother ever. Her attractions have nothing to do with her ability to parent. The question for the person with same-sex attraction is, are you going to form your family in a way that honors your child's right to be known and loved by their mother and father every day? Or are you going to force that child to sacrifice their rights so that you can have the family that fits your romantic desires? For the marriage that's struggling. Okay, so when I'm not doing this, I'm in my husband's office at the church doing marriage counseling. I know how hard marriage is. I understand the devastation of discovering the porn addiction or the job loss or dealing with the unpacked childhood traumas that are affecting your marriage today. It is hard, and I'm never going to minimize the struggle of marriage that honestly all marriages will go through in seasons, but some seasons last a long time. But if there's not abuse, abandonment, adultery, addiction, if you cannot solve that, what you're saying is, oh, this cross is too heavy for me. Here, kids, you take it instead. You are the adult. You have to do the hard thing. And that is it. That is the theme. If you read the book, you're going to see that that is the answer to all of this. Someone is going to do the hard thing in all the scenarios I just mentioned. The question is it going to be the kid or is it going to be the adults? We think it should be the adults. We think that forcing children to sacrifice for adults is an injustice. And that is an injustice that is going to have ripple effects, not just in that child's individual life, but in all of society.
Well, I hope you have found this discussion not only inspiring, but also informative. Christians have to be able to think, especially in this constantly changing culture, from a Christian worldview. To learn more and to find more discussions, please visit lighthousevoices.org. That's lighthousevoices.org.